Hello marketer, it's Ty here and welcome to another episode of Lean Mean Marketing Teams. Delighted today to introduce our guest, Steffen Daleng, CMO of Booktopia. Steffen has a really fascinating career starting out in the army and then working his way through starting several startups, being a freelancer, acquiring companies, selling companies, all the way until he made his way to CMO of Booktopia and has helped them IPO and grow at quite a rapid clip. And so he's got a really interesting career journey, but he also has an interesting take on the changing role of marketing that we dive into around the importance of influencer marketing, how trust has become so important, the use of data and personalisation and how crucial that is, especially for e-commerce. We then talk about how some of that thinking has influenced how he's recently restructured his team. So he underwent a massive restructure, redefining the team to help them reach an ambitious goal of becoming a 500 million in revenue company. And he talks about the journey he went on, how he set that vision for the team, and then how he came up with the 6 different teams that are going to help Booktopia achieve that vision and mission, and the importance of the CEO buy-in and support for that, and the importance of promoting some of the internal staff that he had brought in on the journey and the reward he got from promoting them into some of those new roles. So really innovative structure, everything from partnerships to performance marketing through to an in-house creative team. So make sure you tune into the episode for that. And lastly, we finish off with some of Steffen's leadership lessons he learned from his early career in the army around the importance of servant leadership and doing everything for your team, through to some of his biggest regrets or mistakes and his biggest investments in his career. So lots in this episode as always. Make sure you download the notes if you want to save yourself some time, and we take detailed notes on each of the episodes. Thank you, Dylan. Just head to growthgenerators.io, head to the podcast section and download the notes. If you like the show, make sure you hit subscribe or follow so you get this whenever it drops. And yeah, I'd love you to leave us a rating or review if you are enjoying the show. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Lean Mean Marketing Teams with Ty Hayes, where you'll hear from leading CMOs and thought leaders about what it takes to create a high-performance marketing team. This podcast is brought to you by Growth Generators, a consulting firm that helps CMOs design and build modern marketing teams that drive growth. If you need help optimizing your marketing team, head to growthgenerators.io. Now, let's get on to the show.
Welcome, Steffen Daleng, CMO of Booktopia, to the Lean Mean Marketing Teams podcast.
Thanks, Ty. It's a real privilege and honor to be here today.
Yeah, and you've got a really interesting career background, having done a bit of research for this, and you've been incredibly busy in the last little while, joining Booktopia and helping them IPO and driving significant growth all through a pandemic. So there's going to be a lot of topics for us to explore today, and I can't wait to get into it. But to kick things off, can you maybe provide a brief summary of your career to date?
Sure. I probably not had the straight and narrow like many others, kind of growing into the marketing roles from marketing academia. My background is very much founders' journeys and multiple startups that I've started myself or co-founded with other co-founders. And over the years, I've founded a few different companies within digital design, e-commerce strategy, e-commerce development, design development, conversion rate optimization, marketing strategy within a boutique agency, starting that up back when I lived in Denmark as well. Purchasing and acquiring a few other businesses as well within e-commerce sphere in different verticals, from physical products, digital currency as well, and working with that for probably 10, 15 years now, then finally starting up a company in Indonesia, which was a production company that did fashion jewelry with a co-founder there, till me ultimately landing here in Australia. What's that now? 8 years ago. And the story is pretty simple, really. Met an Australian girl, fell in love, and wanted to follow the heart on that one. So I landed here in Australia 8 years ago, and after having exited some other companies there and wanted something to do, and my heart has always been in sales and marketing, and that's kind of my pedigree as well from an experience level. So yeah, I took a punt at a company here and started growing my personal brand, personal name within marketing in Australia 8 years ago. And that's probably been my journey.
Yeah, brilliant. Like you say, not conventional, but I can imagine that founders and entrepreneurial experience and the interest in e-commerce and the purchasing and acquiring, you can just see how all that has played into your current role in helping Booktopia obviously go global and IPO and drive significant growth there. So yeah, there's a bit of a section at the end, but I'd love to dig in a little bit more to that career journey, because I always find that fascinating and how people have the stepping stones to get to where you are now. So look forward to that. And for the audience's benefit, can you tell us a bit more about Booktopia?
Yeah. So Booktopia is a pure play online retailer that sells books here in Australia. The company was founded roughly 17 years ago now. So over those years, it's been growing up to a business now with around 250 employees. Ultimately, we had around 50 million website visits here last finance year. We sell an item every 4.6 seconds, something like that. 3 million newsletter recipients that we can talk to, more than 1.2 million active customers. So quite a big business here. And we predominantly sell in Australia, and we sell in New Zealand as well. And that's kind of been where we've been growing up. The story is really, really fascinating. And that's probably also one of the reasons that I really got attracted to Booktopia in the first place. When I arrived here, I kind of grew within the book industry, and Booktopia was in many ways, for me, a very similar and very familiar story. It was started up by 3 entrepreneurs that had a digital marketing agency and did digital marketing for a living and sold those services back 17 years ago. And from that, they came up with this side hustle, which was selling books online. They kind of used that idea around selling books online with some of the incumbents that was existing back then, the bookstores here. Nobody really believed in it. Some people believe that you couldn't sell books online here. Some people thought you were too late because of Amazon back then as well. But at the end of the day, I think they really just stuck to it and kept growing it. And then slowly but surely focusing on the profitability, reinventing all the stock. This is the right bootstrapping approach on reinventing all your profits into scalability and growing the remit, the depth and the width of the product range, and acquiring more and more customers, and then growing naturally and organic from there. The business basically grew up to the size that it has now, and we're, as you've seen from the numbers, around $300 million worth of revenue a year at the moment, and 14,000 square meters worth of inventory with roughly 150,000 different titles in stock, almost 1 million products on our shelves. And we sell roughly 5.8 to 6 million products through our website. So large scale, large SKU count, large customer base. So it's probably in the higher volumes that gets closer and closer to being the marketplace kind of size, in terms of the complexities that you need to solve around SEO and indexation and categorizations, and the complexities around all those things. So yeah, that's the business. But then over the years, as we've been growing and we've really been able to reinvest into different areas of the industry, we have also become a publisher. So we now have the direct relationships with authors. We publish our own titles and acquire rights to publish. We're also a distributor. So we have 2 other legs of Booktopia, which is the publishing business, which we publish our own books. And then the other leg of the business is a distributor, where we actually do go out and wholesale books to many independent bookstores and big bookstore retail chains here in Australia as well. So there's a degree of talking about having a full circle economy here.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think you look at the Netflix and the Amazon and all of those platforms, even Spotify, they started as kind of a distribution or a marketplace with selling copyright to other products, but then they've quickly realized, we should get into the publishing game. And now they're obviously massive producers of content. I think it's just interesting how in the book world that's following a similar kind of theme. And the other question that springs to my mind out of curiosity is, Amazon's such a behemoth. How have you guys survived against them, and what's been the USP that's got you through?
Great question. And to elaborate a little bit more on it, the IPO that you talked about earlier, and we'll talk a bit more on it later in the show, but we actually tried to IPO back in 2016. That IPO got shelved because Amazon came out at the same time and said, we're hitting Australia now. There's always been a degree of crying wolf over the past decade. We knew that they were going to be landing in Australia at some point, like they did in the UK. So when they finally came out and said that they were going to be landing here, it was the same time as we went out with our first attempt at IPO in 16. So there's a degree of what the market believes Amazon is and is not, and then there's a degree of what we believe Amazon is. For me, I don't consider Amazon a competitor. Obviously, I'm aware that they're able to move books, but they're not a book retailer. And the percentage share of revenue that comprises Amazon's profitability and revenue and underlying sales is very small in the book area. That might be their DNA. It's what they came from. The best experience you can get in buying and finding and exploring books, better alternatives out there. And this is what you see in any business, where you add product mix, you add categories and add verticals. There comes a point where, like any other business, it'll be triage, and you need to look at what you want to focus on. Often gets determined by profitability and the lion's share of revenue. Obviously, you're not going to have a situation where majority of your focus is going to be lying on the minority of revenue, minority of profits. And like I said, books is not even remotely close to being a primary category for Amazon in terms of revenue, if you look at it. look at that. So I think there's a great opportunities for many retailers out there to leverage of that transcends the book category, but really it doesn't really matter what you sell. They don't have a focus on it, like they don't have a focus on so many other things. So, there's a convenience with shopping on marketplaces. If you shop a lot and you have many different things you want to combine into the same basket, that's undeniable. And that's consumer behavior. So you would be silly not thinking about that. But they are a marketplace and they're an avenue, and we sell on Amazon too, with some products strategically. We choose particular products that we can find beneficial to grow on Amazon. Here's a good example. We have the publishing arm where we have a different amount of accountability for authors that we bring into the Booktopia ecosystem. If they publish with us and we own the rights, we have a responsibility to make that author seen and heard and their books getting out there in the world. That transcends just Booktopia's own ecosystem and own platforms. We've acquired a few businesses over time, including Angus and Robertson, which was another big retail chain here. We acquired the online component of that. And back in 2020, we acquired the Co-op, which was the largest higher education resources retailer in the country, actually also where I worked back in the day. And full circle thing. So Amazon is important for us for some reasons, and that is, of course, distribution, getting our unique IPs, getting that out in the world, which needs to transcend your own homegrown platforms and brands that you also sell on. But that's the extent of it. I look at what they're doing because of customer behavior and customer psychology, and looking at what moves in the marketplace world. But I look even more at all the new marketplaces that's coming up, like your Catches of the world, your MyDeals of the world, and everybody else that's getting significant traction and getting some great talent and people on board on those places. And that's what I'm monitoring. So Amazon, not really marketplaces.
Yeah, that makes sense. They can't do everything well, and they are really the everything store. And by focusing just on books, you can deliver a better experience, better products.
Hey, I think it was Confucius that said it best: if you chase 2 rabbits, you catch 0.
Yeah, like that. Okay, we might shift gears now. I saw you recently gave a talk to the B2B digital marketing conference of some kind on the changing role of marketing. I think it's an evergreen topic in marketing. It seems the goalposts are always moving, but what do you see as the major trends, and how exactly is the role of marketing changing, do you think?
It really depends on what vertical that you're working in, but one of the biggest trends that I'm seeing right now is the unlocked capabilities around data and contextuality and relevance. The technology that's available right now to get access to data about customers, collect data about customers, and allow them to give you permission to use that to talk to them in a relevant fashion. The technologies that are out there to facilitate the communication between all those platforms, like I'm going to try not using too many acronyms right now, but the customer data management platforms, your marketing orchestration tools, all these tools that are making you capable to understand your customers and what matters to them based on inferred knowledge, transactional, factual knowledge about them, first-party data that you have around who they are, what they buy, what they're interested in, all that information. And then the direct linear correlation between getting that into a tool that can automatically act on that and do that at scale. These things are getting cheaper, more accessible, and that becomes the new battleground for relevance, really, as the noise out in the market gets larger and larger and larger. Banner blindness is something we've been talking about for almost 2 decades now. It's the same thing that we're seeing across everything else, but you're yelling louder and louder and louder, and you're seeing this shift around needing to be relevant, needing to be personal. And within that has shifted the face of trust at the same time. 15 years ago, we had a different battle. We're trying to persuade people that it was safe to put your credit card in front of a screen. It was a different battle. It was a different kind of problem we're trying to solve. It was very much trust. Today, that's changing. You're seeing consumer behavior and patterns changing online that really talks to that shift in trust. You're having unknown random people becoming influencers out of nowhere, all of a sudden capture and entertain an audience, to now all of a sudden being the authorities of a vertical because they've been able to entertain them. Now all of a sudden they have this permission to upsell them and permission to sell them. Kylie Jenner, for crying out loud. $1 billion company on the back of nothing else, obviously more than that, but at the cusp of it, the capability of entertaining and capturing and engaging an audience to then build so much trust that when she said, buy my makeup, everybody bought her makeup. Ties back into what Seth Godin was talking about, his books around permission marketing back in the days. There's nothing new here, but we have accelerated the trust in online. And the world is ready to throw their money around based on what people talk about online. So I think barrier to trust have kind of fallen more away, and it's just paved the way for influencers and live commerce and all these other things that creates this almost instantaneous ecosystem of influence, which is fantastic. I absolutely love it. We do it too, to a certain extent. You see that in China as well, where live commerce and mobile commerce is absolutely going bananas over there. It is the de facto way of operating right now. It was the same in Indonesia. I think those are some of the macro observations that I probably have in terms of how it's changed the way we behave as human beings and how we provide trust into platforms. And I think that's something to pay attention to. Profusely.
Yeah, and has it shifted then more to, like you say, the individuals and the influencers and almost away from big companies? And even, looking at Apple iOS 15 and all of this ad blockers, opt-in for app tracking, and now email, can't track emails if it's Apple Mail, is that a shift you've seen as well? So influencers and individuals are building trust, but people are a little bit more wary of companies and organizations and their modus operandi with the technology they've got to be more personalized and more relevant. Where does that fall? Because I see the total advantage of being more relevant, especially Booktopia, where you can use all that first-party data, look at what they've purchased, what they might be interested in, what other customers have bought, and create that kind of referral engine. But you probably have influencers that you use, you've got authors as well. But any comments on that, I guess, other movement around privacy and how that juxtaposes with the trust around influencers?
I think trust is, again, the key cornerstone of what we're talking about here. Many people are not afraid of giving their information or allowing you to use information if they trust that you're going to be providing them value for doing that. People pay for personalization, like a concierge service. People pay for different levels of personalization to customize something for them. Like you talk about Apple, right? But Apple even has a product that literally is inscribing your name on it to personalize the products to you. So there's this double-edged sword here around understanding how people are actually willing to do that. So I think that as long as you're transparent and you provide value, and that's a hard thing to do right now because we're talking about the personalization, we're talking about how we communicate to people, and to take it away from the buzzwordy macro view of right message, right time, and et cetera, et cetera. At the end of the day, we want to be able to present people with a piece of information that's relevant to them in the moment that is relevant to them, right? Or product suggestion that provides value to them. I want to make sure that when Ty is looking at our website right now on Booktopia, that the books that you see on Booktopia was exactly what you would wanted. Exactly. And I dare say that while you don't know your personal preference, but you may be anti using data like this. But if you came in on a website and they immediately showed you the things that you actually needed and you actually wanted, or actually needed but didn't know that you needed it, absolutely you would find value in that. No doubt about it. That's the difference between marketplace and more niche-based sites. I hear it all the time: endless aisles, more choice. I don't think people fundamentally understand the cataclysmic problem with choice and having too much choice. So the whole idea around endless aisles and all that, while on some levels it could be great, but it also provides a different level of complexity of having too much choice that just leads to indecisiveness and lack of action. So back to the answer, I think that people are willing to allow personalization and sharing their data if they trust that you can handle it, if they trust that it's safe with you, and if they trust that you're going to be giving them value for it, then I believe that people will want to do that. I do. And I think that's really what I want to work towards. We did it on Booktopia as well. Around a year and a half ago, we built functionality into our account. So your customer account, where you could provide more information about your first party data. The ITP has been undergoing for a long time. It's nothing new. Just because we're screaming about iOS 15, and this has been on the way for a very, very long time, gradually, small steps. But all marketers knew this, particularly in the performance marketing discipline, where it was the capabilities to track revenues that were getting lost in the beginning, right? So we went out and built functionalities into your customer account on Booktopia, where if you want to provide us some information about you that we can then use to be more relevant to you and give you the right product offering and information offering, then provide your information here. Then, of course, you can go cute on it like we did with providing a little bit of gamification around it, like your account is X% finished. All of a sudden you have this soft approach of saying, fill in the rest, have a bit of fun with it while you're doing it. But also nothing new in that. LinkedIn did that. Facebook did that. That was also how they provide. So at the gist, I don't think that is a problem unless you can convince people that they can trust you.
Yeah. Solid answer. And before we get into the next section then on how this thinking around the changing role of marketing has influenced your team design, I'd like to get your perspective. I kind of started asking this in podcasts recently about what you think is unique about your specific industry. So we had Dan Ferguson a while back and he gave his perspective on e-commerce, but what do you think is unique about e-commerce marketing team structures compared to other more traditional retailers?
I think the retail and the marketing around retail and online retail the big difference should be, in my view, at the end of the day, it's all about understanding customers, understanding the market, and persuading people to do what you want. At the end of the day, it sounds a bit manipulative, but ultimately that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to convince people that this is what they need, and either they really, really do because we did our job well, and you're providing great service, providing what they need. Other times, you're trying to persuade them to get a need for it. The biggest difference between a normal marketing and an online or retail marketing online is the performance marketing side of things. It's easy to track things more on performance. But to go back to your first part of the question, which was what's the difference between normal retail marketing and then online retail marketing? To split the waters here, if you don't do online retail marketing, you're a bit behind the curve here. And you're most certainly not servicing your customers' needs if you're not doing anything online. So for all the retailers out there right now who are listening in and don't do online of some sort, to cater for any piece of the marketing funnel from awareness to advocacy, if you're not doing that, get started is probably the word. But the big difference here for me is it's probably more operationalized, I would say. And I think for the companies, for the pure play online retailers out there, there's a deeper tie-in between what you do as a marketer in acquiring customers, getting traffic in, getting people in the door, and then the accountability to what they do from there and how that impacts your entire chain in the business, the entire supply chain. Let me give you a good example. The first thing we do in marketing every single morning is talk to our distribution center and hearing how's it going right there. We're fully staffed. We have this forecast for today. We're still going to be hitting those things. Are you overstaffed, understaffed? What do we need to deliver? We designed and built capabilities within Booktopia that makes the marketing team completely capable of saying, okay, we need 500 more units by the end of the day. Easy, done. We need 5,000 units less. Easy, done. So we have the capabilities and the skills and the talent to go out and tweak exactly how much units needs to come into the distribution center, depending on the operational capacity down there. So the companies out there that's doing online retail, you should be having that kind of focus. It's not just about getting people in the door. Like many other marketing teams and many other businesses, it doesn't stop when you get people in the door. That's the start of the journey, really. Then you still need to have some accountability around what happens from there. KPIs that I'm looking at all the time is how quick are we to send out. I will literally stop marketing if I can see and stop getting customers in the door, if I can see that we don't have capacity to ship out orders fast enough. There's a probability that our handling time, how long it takes for us to ship your order out, if I believe that your order is jeopardized getting out on time to your expectation, I'll cut marketing, I'll cut it back so you get the right experience. But at the end of the day, you can argue that's operational, but it's not to me, it's brand. It's crafting and creating and owning the customer experience at any single point of it, and then owning your accountability and responsibility around that. So I think probably segued a little bit here, but I think that's one of the big differences between online retailers. It is you can do that. You have an impact here, and you can take that accountability and work with that to provide the best experience you possibly can and be part of that journey for the customer. So that's probably one of the major differences. And of course, you can go tactile and say, yeah, performance marketing is more prevalent, maybe less brand in this particular area if you really want to talk marketing like that. But those are some of the typical things.
Yeah.
Wow. There's been a lot covered in this interview so far. As a marketing leader, we know you like to spend more time taking action and less time taking notes. So we've got you covered. We packaged up all the tips, strategies, and resources from each episode into some beautifully crafted notes just for you. Not ugly AI-generated transcripts, but real notes taken by a real person on our team. To grab the notes, head on over to growthgenerators.io, look out for this podcast episode, and download the notes. But be quick, they're only live for a few weeks after the episode airs. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, makes sense, more connection through those operations. And I like that point you made around stopping it if the distribution is going to be delayed, because I assume you've done your journey mapping and you know that time from order to delivery is an important factor. And if people think it's going to take too long, then they'll bounce and go elsewhere. Or if they expected it sooner and got it later, they might not come back, right? And it'll affect your retention and the overall experience.
I don't think brand is hard. Do what you're supposed to do. Deliver on your expectations, then you get a long way.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, we might move on then into how some of this thinking might have influenced how you've recently restructured your team. I know there was an article, I think it was in Umbrella a little while ago, hinting at some of the restructure that you've done. But how has this thinking around the role of marketing and the nuances of e-commerce marketing versus retail influenced the way you've structured your team?
you're right. I did go out and I made a massive restructure, a really big one. It was a bit daunting, and for a short spell, it was really nerve-wracking in terms of, can I pull this off? We made changes to basically everything in the entire team structure, and we created a map moving forward for different accountabilities, different ways of operating. We changed all of our procedures and all of our processes, and with that, there's massive disruption. The reason why I did that was I went out to Tony. Tony's the CEO of Booktopia, and I sat down and I presented him with my plan on how we become a $500 million business, and said, this is the structure that will lead us to not just become a $500 million business on the retail side of things, but also how we create the capacity and the capabilities, the procedures and the structures and the talent that's going to be required to first and foremost get there, but also sustain that growth and do that profitably. So it was more of a long-term vision idea of what's required for the business to be able to get into that position, presenting that to him. And luckily, we have a great relationship. Tony and I were very, very much on the same page with things. I wasn't expecting us to act on it this soon, but he immediately said, let's do that. So there's a degree of thinking a bit ahead in the future, pitching the idea of the vision, and then getting buy-in. Everyone needs to get buy-in. And that was really it. And then we started that journey, and we started saying, okay, well, obviously, we're not going to be hiring that whole crew of what was pitched immediately. We'll do this slowly, gradually, and sustainably in a way that makes sense, which is hiring some of the critical capacity and the critical capabilities, but also start doing those new structures. It's going to be massively disruptive when you're creating new teams, new structures, and new accountabilities. You're going to be changing all your workflows, your procedures, and your processes. It's going to create challenges somehow. You're going to drop some eggs on the floor. You are, and you need to be okay with that. You need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, if you want to use that. But I am, and that's probably the startup nature and the mentality that I have with taking risks and calculating and considered risks is not really a fear of mine. But we went out and we looked at what are those key and critical components and headcounts we need to have in place now, and then build upon that. And the structure of how the different teams need to work with each other, the intersection between how they play and engage with all the other departments of the company and how that works. Those are some of the immediate things that we need to get right first. So we created the structure, we put people into the right positions, a lot of internal promotions in the business from that, which was my biggest joy and my biggest pleasure, was to take amazing talent that I got in earlier than these things were done, believed in myself, believed in the company, believed in the vision and where I wanted to take them. And I knew that they took a step down to work with me and work with the team. I knew that I was lucky with the talent that we had coming in, and very, very, very privileged and very, very fortunate with that. So the second I could go out and do this and elevate those people, there's no bigger joy. No bigger joy. You put your trust in me, here's the reward. So a fantastic personal moment for me. There's some of the biggest thing you could do is create better futures and better lives for the people around you. There's nothing more gratifying. So the journeys were put in place, the teams were put in place, the structures were being challenged, and we've actually not had any big hiccups. I was really surprised to see that. There hasn't been any major disruption. Culture is absolutely phenomenal, even better.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of lessons in that. One is, I guess, thinking forward, thinking about what's the strategy of the business and how do we get to $500 million, like a big, hairy, audacious goal and a North Star, and go, what's the capability we need to get there as the starting point, and then working backwards to create a kind of a roadmap together, knowing you can't put in place all of those roles straight away, knowing that it's going to create a bit of chaos as that change unfolds, but also the realization that all of your processes are going to change. And I think that's something that's often overlooked, is everyone's so focused on the new structure that they put it in place and then go, oh shit, who needs to work with who? How does this get done? Seeing in the umbrella, and we'll get into your team in a little while, but on paper, it may look like there's a bit of overlap in some of those teams.
Oh, there is.
And when there's overlap, I've said on other ones, you get a bit of toe stepping, and you can get sore feet after a little while. And that goes to the importance of those processes, right? Having really clear processes so everyone knows what role they play when, in terms of from brief to go to market or whatever that process is, and having that all laid out. And obviously having the support of the CEO is critical to roll out any kind of change like this. And fantastic that you got to do those internal promotions again. Whenever I've done restructures in my career as a CMO and then with other now consulting, it is so rewarding to see that happen, and not just the whole exec team be replaced by new people. It's when you can provide that career progression and succession that it creates extra trust for you and amongst the team, and it makes the hard part of change worth it. There are some rewards from this, and And coming back to that vision, the team knows where you're going and why you've done it. I think that's always so important, not just here's a new structure because this is what we came up with. This is what we're aiming for. We want to get there. Do you want to come with us? It's the journey. This is what we need to get there. So lots of great lessons in that.
Spot on. But again, to tie into what you said before, and it's perfectly correct, is always strategy first. Marketing plan needs to be strategy. It needs to be derived from the corporate strategy and what it is that we need to accomplish. And like we talked about earlier on, Booktopia is now in a phase where now we're doing a lot of looking at mergers and acquisitions, a lot more of that. We've done a few in the past, but a lot more now. Need to create a capabilities in the team that accounts for that accounts for the future roadmap of the company. And I think that's where marketers have to be operators. It's one of the biggest issues that I hear about out there, but probably because of my legacy and my inheritance and where I come from, I don't think in those terms. I don't think that way. I think about growth. I think about company growth, and I think about customer growth and brand growth and positioning, and not marketing. It's a byproduct. That's a service function. It is a tactical trick that I can do to do those things. But that's it. So it's always strategy first.
Yeah, and I think that's probably part of that entrepreneurial background, and is that growth, I think, is entwined with that. From using the little resources that you've got, you're always looking at what's a revenue target or where are we going with this thing. Also true in e-commerce. I think Dan Ferguson said in that episode, there's such a close correlation between the strategy and the marketing strategy, and that alignment on growth is you're there to help the business grow. That's what you're there for, and you're going to build the team to help do that. And it seems to be a bit more transparent and clear cut. E-commerce, probably because the operations, you have a role through the operations like you were talking about before. You're deeply connected to the distribution center, and you know what the journey is like, and you're helping shift and control, supply and logistics based on that. So it just seems a lot more connected and a lot both to revenue and the full operations of the business, which I think is really fascinating. So then breaking it down into how the team is actually organized, 21 staff, which teams report into you now?
So we have 6 teams in total at the moment. The prelude to talking about what teams we have in here, probably want to talk about why. And why we split up like that first. One of the biggest challenges that we've always have is, challenge is the wrong word, but historically we've been really digging deep down into the performance disciplines. Obviously, we were a company that had a legacy and a DNA of being founded by by marketers, doing SEO, SEM, and performance marketing to some degree. And because it was a bootstrap company, everything needed to be profitable. There was things that you would do and things that you wouldn't do, like any other founder who starts up a company and chooses to not take excess funding in somehow and don't want hypergrowth. There's been a degree of that legacy that's been prevalent, like with so many other businesses that's been growing up and IPO as well. That never really did any kind of brand, but somehow they still managed to go out and build a brand. So there's this degree of finding a way to create brand, get the brand out there, brand distribution, get eyeballs on you and get your name out there in as many crafty, creative ways as humanly possible without paying $1 for it. And within that, I've tried to maintain that legacy and maintain that way of thinking in everything that we do, both by necessity, because that's our MO, that's the modus operandi of the organization and the business. So it's not that I'm anti-TV or anything like that, not at all, not even remotely. But it's not right. It wasn't right for the business in its position. So obviously, I need to think more creative about, well, how do we do that? Because the brand is critically important. Without that, performance marketing can't work either. If you don't have a strong brand, if you can't get people to convert, then it doesn't matter. If you get cheap clicks, it doesn't matter. So at the end of the day, don't hear anti-brand, not at all, quite the opposite. But we needed other ways to create brand, and creating great experiences, delivering customer promise is a critical part of it. And that's how that's how business can grow sustainably and bootstrap, and why they do that in the first place. The power of word of mouth from customers that got a great experience with you. But that takes time. It's a slow climb if you want to do that. But for us, again, how do we then get up to the 500 million? But that comes back into the whole thing of realizing there comes a point where you tap out of performance marketing, the capabilities there. There's no more low-hanging fruit. You need to start planting some trees if you want to get fruit. So that's kind of what we're doing here with the best of the capabilities that we're doing, is understanding the foundation of building great brand is to get your brand out in front of as many eyeballs as humanly possible, while hopefully people thinking happy thoughts while looking at your brand or thinking about your brand. That's where the positive correlation between an experience and a brand is pretty important too. So within that, we really doubled down on everything around partnerships, everything about affiliate marketing, more around content, getting content out there, influencers, working strongly with influencers, and really building win-win scenarios and relationships with everything from authors to publishers and etc. And there's nothing new here. There's a reason why Robert Downey Jr. needs to sit on all those panels and talk about his next upcoming movies. There's nothing new here. We've always been doing that. Celebrity endorsements, talking about those things. For us, we're doing the same thing. We're using our ecosystem, which is, of course, the authors, with the people who produce the product. There's nothing more powerful than the person who made the product saying, "This is my product. This is where you need to buy it." That's the end. Nothing more powerful. When you work with multi-brand, the retail like we are, you're not the brand yourself. So that's been critically important for us to own that ecosystem, be part of that ecosystem, and create and build and make a foundation out of that. So everything that I've really been doing has been doubling down on the capabilities and the capacity around that. You can tie it in with a recognition around mobile commerce, influencer marketing, and the shift in trust and authority around those things as well. But that's where we put a lot of effort into really building the capacity around that. So the teams that we've isolated out is we have a separate partnerships team now that focuses only on large-scale partnerships, other brands that want to work with Booktopia, other brands that want to be part of our ecosystem. Like I said, with 3 million people in our network that we can communicate to in our email database alone, there's a lot of opportunity there. 50 million website visits a year right now. There's a big platform to be part of. You get your brand in front of a lot of people. So obviously we have leverage because we have platform, we have size, and we have built opportunities for our partners to get a lot of eyeballs on their brands too. So we try and create these reciprocal partnerships where we help each other out. If our customer profile is aligned and our brand is aligned, and I can borrow a little bit of brand equity from a great brand that everybody loves and trusts and respects, and I can create a brand that has that too, and offer and lend that to another company, then win-win. So we're really focusing on that. And that team is going out and building all these relationships and great joint marketing, joint product in general, product placements out there, and really looking at all those creative ways of working with other brands and being relevant in other ecosystems. So that's
one or two of those partnerships that you want to mention.
If there's a partnership I want to mention, we did one with Panadol not that long ago, where if you went down to a pharmacy, then if you went up to the counter at the level of POS, if you were buying a children's Panadol, you would also get a free ebook from Booktopia. And there was a QR code right there that you could just scan. The Booktopia logo was there as well. Price for Booktopia, $0, but it was in all the pharmacies. Those kind of partnerships, again, where you can get as much brand distribution, positive brand distribution as humanly possible, be part of an ecosystem that makes sense, and hopefully also commercial deals that make sense too, and can offer that to your partners as well, then those things are great. And we work with Disney as well. Again, there's a lot of IPO with Disney that translates into other kind of merchandise and books and etc. And then we work with a lot of magazines and a lot of other areas, a lot of mastheads that want to talk about books or work with that. So a lot of different kind of partnerships for us. It's of course about getting the brand out there and getting correlation with other brands and get distribution on it. So that's the partnership team. Then we have a trade marketing team, which is more your operational, typical. Here are all the things that we do within typical marketing. We get a CRM team within that team. They focus on a bottom-up build, which basically is looking at all the trade opportunities, doing the constant forecasting, constant talking with the DC or distribution center, making sure that on an operational level, we are absolutely razor sharp all the time, constant margin focus, constant looking at, are we over discounting, under discounting, promotional usage, and how we need to structure tactics to make sure that we're not doing too much discounting. I'm not a fan of discounting. I believe that promotions, campaigns, and any kind of discount should be done on the sole value or the sole purpose of creating customer value. I need to be able to do something that creates value for Thai in this particular moment. You can use it as win back and all these things as well, but it shouldn't be discounted for the sake of discounting. One of the first things that we did when I came into the business was kill majority of the free shipping programs that were so habitual that you can see in Google search when people were expecting to get free shipping coupons from the business. Literally, Google Trends will show you when those patterns were in the past. So some of the first things that I had to go out and do was just cut that immediately and then remodel consumer expectations and consumer patterns and purchase patterns. Want to sit on the order? Sit. Hang around, wait, there's nothing coming out. So I think there's a degree of being able to go out and really craft that really, really well, where you're creating value, moving units and doing great experiences, but really doing it in a way where you don't creating this discounting mentality where people just I do this too. Come on. Who doesn't put products in their cart
Their basket,
today?
wait 24 hours?
Exactly. And wait 24 hours to get that damn abandoned cart email. Everybody does this now.
That's right.
Like it's a funny thing. It's not being talked more about. It's such a natural part of online consumer behavior now, but marketers are completely ignoring it. Is this anthropology? What anthropology? People don't care about consumer behavior or human behavior, and they want to adamantly think that the marketing programs are the bee's knees without thinking about they're gaming you. You're not gaming them. So the team is supposed to really be looking at that and really understanding that and building up a great experience for customers that are relevant and that matters without over discounting or building trend and patterns that are counterintuitive and counterproductive to profitabilities that we want to make. Then we got a campaigns team, which is the opposite. It is the consumer intent, thematical seasonality, looking at a top level human intent. What periods of the year are people having their wallets out and why are they having their wallets out and what play can we have in that? What's relevant? Everything from Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas to Black Fridays and etc. And understanding those hypes and understanding those trends and then building up campaigns around that so that makes sense. But that's the difference. There's a difference between going bottom up, where you're taking product, margins, operations, taking all of that first, and then you're taking top level intent and you're crafting down. So there was a need for me to go out, and I know it might be counterintuitive for many others that would do something else, keep it in the same team, which we had in the past. But you need to be able to have people thinking enough about these things and craft a team structure that allows 100% focus on it. That's what we have now. We have people that focuses isolatedly on that, top down customer intent and seasonalities and performance and operation and units and inventory and generals and etc.
Sometimes that friction probably results in a better outcome, right? If they're in the same team, they might lean one way or the other, or not be as focused on the margin versus the customer experience, customer intent, but putting them in different teams, like you say, gives them that singular focus, but then they can come together and have the right discussions to arrive at the right results that meet both objectives.
There's no right or wrong here. It really depends on what skills you have, what team members that you have available to you, the size of the team, how many people, how many brains can you have thinking about these problems, and how you're going to structure that. For us, for now, this is the right approach for us to make sure that we have the right critical capabilities to really think properly around those different areas and do that in a structured and accountable way where the right people have the right mandates. So that's the critical thinking around that. Then we have a performance team, where the performance team is doing, it's everything around paid activity, display, programmatic, what have you not, BBots, and etc. Everything you can target based on data, customer data, on through an ad platform or something like that, that you have those capabilities of targeting and performance marketing and tracking all that. That sits in that team together with some affiliate marketing. And that's again where we can tap a little bit into when people are stepping on each other's toes and how you split these things up, because it's certainly the case in terms of affiliate marketing for us, and I'll explain why in a moment. So performance marketing that sits both with performance and sits with affiliate marketing and these things as well, because they have the critical minds. And there's a big difference between the brain of a person who's deep down in structuring AdWords campaigns and capabilities around programmatic and data, and then a social media team or organic social media team or a creative team or a trade marketing team. Very, very different human brains that needs to work on different kind of functionalities and capabilities. So another team is the brand and communications team. That's a bit of a motley crew, to be frank here, because we have a PR, everything around public relationships, but doing some internally, and we're doing some with PR partners as well. We also have community. I call it community rather than social, because social was really the tool and the platforms more than anything else. I would rather want to create conversations and focus on that, so call it that. I prefer calling it narratives and conversations, and as such, we have a team that handles that. They craft, create, and engages in conversations about books and literacy online, and they're responsible for all of that. Just so happens to be on social platforms right now. Then we also have influencers sit there as well, and the reason for that, I'll be very clear about this, because this is where a lot of people go, well, why doesn't that sit with the performance team? Why doesn't that sit with the partnerships team? Because there's these crossovers between what is a partnership, what is affiliate marketing, and what is an influencer. Well, they're all the same thing. Could be. It depends on how you want to look at it. People need to stop being so anal about things and adamant that everything needs to have a very clear name on it. You need to look at purpose. And then you need to structure a team based on what is the purpose of what you're trying to accomplish, and then figure out how do I create people and talent around that job best possible. The partnerships team is an extension of the CMO's typical remit of going out and structuring high profile, very, very complex cross-marketing, cross-responsibility products and services and marketing programs, which is a different kind of, it needs to be overlapping everything else. It needs to have some kind of mandate that can transcend any kind of channel ownership or anything like that. And as such, that needs to be sitting out there. And while it might be executed, some partnerships might be executed with affiliate reciprocal, clip of the ticket, kickbacks, percentage, commissions. It might even be put into affiliate tracking system so you can track it correctly through that. But that doesn't change what it is. What it is a high-level strategic relationship with somebody where the execution transcends any kind of channel. High-level strategy that needs to be executed with the mandates that's going to be getting those things over the line. So that team sits over there with those mandates and with those capabilities to build those very, very large, structured and complex relationships. It sometimes takes months to execute because of the complexities and legalities and what have you not. Over on the other side, you've got good old-fashioned affiliate marketing, which very often just is, okay, I have a website. I don't want to sell books, but I talk about books. So maybe if you just give me a link, I can permanently put in here and make a clip of the ticket. Some people just want to do that, and that's fine too. And some other areas that is very one-sided. They just send traffic to you through that affiliate link, and that's it. They don't go out and create marketing plans for you or brand distribution anyway. It's very much fixed banner on a website or fixed link on a website. Organically, people will filter themselves in there and click on that, but the partner didn't do anything particular to drive that in that moment. That's a different kind of performance marketing. Then on the other side, you have the influencers, you have the subject matter experts, the people who produce the product, the actual authors themselves. It's critically important that we are 100% aware of how they engage and talk to their audience and their communities and their fan bases and figure out how can we be part of that, or how can we create that with them? How can we help them grow their fan bases, get more fans into their community and be part of that narrative to create those win-win moments. But quite often you would also go out and say, well, if I need to do that for you, I need to get a little something for it. Again, it transcends the book industry. It's movies, musicians. They create their fan bases on social media. Where do they talk to them? On social media. Where do they engage with them to ask them to do something? On social media. Where do they send links into buying something? On social media. So why does the influencer team sit in that team? Because it happens on social media. You need to understand social media. You cannot be sitting in a partnership team. You cannot be sitting in a performance marketing team that understand ad platforms and ad tech and programmatic and all that and have no clue how people are communicating on social media or the reason the latest hype on social media was. So yeah, have the right people sitting with the right things. It's not really complicated. It's pretty logical if you ask me, but that's the gist of it. It's structuring a team that just makes sense to purpose.
Yeah, and again, it's insightful, starting with the purpose of each team and the remit and thinking about the particular skill sets and the makeup of the individuals that you need in those teams. So you've got the right people doing the right work and focused on the right purpose.
And then the final one is the creative team. Creative team really has both designers and with time it will get more creative people around that to, again, leverage of great creative minds. Again, there's a big difference between being a great performance marketer and then going out and coming up with something absolutely crazy creative that really makes people stop and talk about it. It requires that the people have the time to sit and think about these things. And they need to have the time, the flexibility, and also the creative environment to do all of that. But it also needs to be a critical part of their remit. Otherwise, you have those typical, let's create a creative day where everybody sits and thinks creative. Mandatory fun. Sounds great. Sounds great. I can just squeeze half an hour in to think creative. You don't want that either. No? So you need to find that perfect mix that creates an environment where you can do all the right things. Yeah. And this is it. This is it for us, where we are right now as an organization and how we move forward. Yeah.
So that creative team then, picking on that one, what's the main objective for that? And are they kind of like a service to the rest of the team, like the campaigns, branding campaigns, performance marketing? Do they receive briefs or are they more a generator of creative as well? Is it a bit two-way or what's their clear objective?
Right now, they are a service team, and you nailed it with that word, because that's exactly what I call it. It's a service function. Because as we have grown from being a retailer, where the design team, the creative team, provide email banners and display banners and many other assets, they need to transcend from that into being a full-blown digital lab that can do CTR analysis and and optimal click flows and really figuring out whether or not this resonates with the right audience and optimizing A/B split testing within that. So there needs to be critical capabilities around that within the team, a lab mentality. But we also need to have the skills and the capacity within that to cater for and service and support those all the other teams and all the other departments and all the other business units that we have growing in the business, which is everything like we talked about from publishers. And we are a publisher. We literally need to have book covers designed. We literally, all these things, new service function that exists within the business. We have a growing business to business. We have a growing distribution. All of these needs to be supported. And this is again, where coming from a background of being a retailer, well, we actually got a business to business, boots on the ground team of 14 people here in Australia, selling Booktopia into schools, libraries, organizations, businesses, law firms, accounting firms, and et cetera, marketing companies, and everybody else who needs to upskill and learn more about particular skill sets. They need marketing material support too. So that's where we've kind of gone from having an in-house design team into being this service agency that needs to support a business that now they're not the e-commerce retailer. It is literally supporting a sales function or a sales team, which is typically where you see it in the market, that there's always going to be who made the sales, the marketing team or the sales team. Well, hopefully both of you did your job well. Hopefully you did it together and you supported each other and got to the end like that. But that also means that you need to have the capabilities and the time and the resources to fundamentally understand what that team needs and how you support the boots on the ground, that people need to basically stand there and persuade somebody. How do you get them the materials that they need to be as persuasive as they can possibly be? And how do you get the right talent to help them do that? And how do you transcend from that, from being a pure play online retailer that just needed to make banners and emails in the past? Different capabilities to support your organization best possible. And that's again where we're going on that journey as well.
Yeah. And last question on the team, because I want to get to the last section briefly before the fast five, but picking up, this focus on CTR and persuasion and almost behavioral economics or nudge thinking, the mix of data driven as well as the creative and the importance of that. Have you got any really interesting roles in the team based around combining that left brain, right brain, or are the behavioral scientists, or is it just the data scientists or the performance marketers? But I'm just curious, it's almost the magic role in your team that combines this, or is at the forefront of CTR and behavioral economics or data science?
No, I think the challenge that we have with that one is, again, that we didn't have the structure to facilitate that in the past, where as we have grown, I think everybody probably recognizes, as you grow the business, you start with the CEO being the one-man band, and then growing from there. And as you grow as a company, you will have less and less jacks of all trades. You will have more and more specialists. You will migrate into a position where people are getting more niche, if you will. So right now, we don't have that. That's definitely what we're working on, and definitely what's in the cards as well is to look more strongly around behavioral economics. We've been doing it internally in the teams with having people in the business who do have understanding of that and know how to ask all the right questions and interrogate the data the right way to come to the right conclusions. For the future, we will be underserviced in that area, which is why it's, of course, something that we need to have a better focus on. But we are in the business investing more and more in data capabilities, with having a new data team in the business as well, strong supported with people with great talent, with great backgrounds, and having done this for very, very big companies in the past as well. But there is that intersection between business intelligence and then marketing understanding and marketing intelligence, and how you translate data and insights into that fundamental consumer behavior understanding that can in turn translate into a brief, can translate into a target, can translate into a segmentation that makes sense. And that's probably some of the intersections that needs to be covered off in the future for us a little bit better. There's no lack of great people with great insights into collecting, storaging, and working with data and all that. But there is that intersection between understanding that data from a marketing capacity and knowing what to do with that data and how to act on it and how that will impact everything in turn. It's a little bit like the intersection between organic search and front-end developers, or back-end developers. You have a bunch of search experts that expects the developers to know SEO because they really should be knowing that. But then the pragmatist and you go, how? No, they shouldn't. It's so customer centric and so customer understood. While you could talk about bots and crawl rates and indexation and all those things, and that becomes very tactile in terms of just read the damn patent. Read Google's old patent and you understand it. I actually did back in the day. I'm that big of a nerd. So that's the problem sometimes. You're expecting everybody else to understand, while you might be having a person who's absolutely phenomenal in building crawl manipulators. How do I manipulate the bots all over the side and all that. The person might be fantastic in terms of what to allow and what not to allow, and how do we make sure we're throttling things the right way to peak load times and all things. That person might not understand so many other things around marketing or in SEO remit. So I think that's one of the challenges that most companies are having, is that intersection. Like with SEO, very big part tech, very, very, very big part human. But that intersection with tech is so nerdy and so deep down in the roots that the best tech people can create SQL, and database, and log mining, and all these kind of things, which that is a tricky breed. Having somebody who understands consumer and human behavior and somebody who's that deep down in the weeds of log file analysis and server side understanding and understanding it's two very different breeds. So it's hard to get the best of both worlds, and that's what I see many companies are missing.
Yeah, black unicorns. But I think it comes back to that importance of cross-functional or agile teams, and it may not be the one person, but it's a small squad. The right teams working towards the right mission together, and combining that skills and knowledge and learning off each other to eventually become more T-shaped. But probably unrealistic to think you'll find that in one person. It's how do you create the right culture where there's that learning and you're pairing the right people together.
But hey, I guess the point here is that when you grow with the business and when you grow in a business, you hopefully have more resources and have more capabilities around that. And it makes sense for the business to isolate roles and capabilities out like that. But we're like any other business. It needs to make sense. We need to look at profitability first and foremost, and dropping in a brand new team and 10 new headcount to understand the user journey. What's the incremental value of that?
That's right. And what can you outsource for now? And that's the next step. Well, Steffen, we're almost out of time. Before we get to the Fast Five, I'd love to just quickly touch on some of the leadership lessons you've learned regarding high performance marketing teams and creating that positive team culture. I think, really interesting career that you've had, and starting from the army to founding startups to freelancing to CMO. I think there'd be a multitude of experiences you could draw from, but maybe starting with the army, that's probably quite an unusual start for a lot of CMOs perhaps. What bearing do you think that had on your leadership style and approach? Or what was your greatest takeaway from that experience?
I think the army gave me the empathetic foundation in which my entire personality today is built on. So not a small part, you can probably say. The reason for that is, and it's funny, I mentioned empathy in the army, right? But in Denmark, I understand that military service across the world is different in many countries. In Denmark, as it is in most companies, the military function, whether it's Navy, Army, Air Force, whatever it is, they are the biggest organizations in whatever country you can mention. Without fail. It will have, if not hundreds of thousands of employees underneath its structure. The capabilities around organizational hierarchies, organizational structures, leadership, it is one of the oldest hierarchies, oldest structures around leadership and management that exists across the globe in any country. In Denmark, the education that you can get in the army is the best business education you can get from a leadership perspective. There came a point in my life where I constantly got asked, whenever I sent a CV out, the question that came back was, do you have a leadership experience from the military? That was what everybody was looking at. The big oil companies, Maersk, the freight, the shipping company, Lego, Carlsberg, Tuborg, all these kind of companies. You will not find a single one of those companies where the people in charge there don't have a military degree. Most of them will probably be officers of the military. So anyway, point being, in Denmark, it's pedigree of leadership, organizational structure, and management. When I decided to do something around that and take that, one of the best things that I learned, and one of the hardest things that I probably ever had to do, was when I graduated as a sergeant. Basically, you're a middle-level manager with a crew of 12 people that you need to train and manage and lead and all that. Here's the thing, though. It's compulsory, right? So everybody needs to go into the military or Navy or Army or something like that, unless you can draw relief and not get in. So what you got is starting your management experience with a bunch of very fucking angry 18-year-old boys who believe you just ruined their lives because they can no longer sit and drink with all their friends or go to all the parties and chase all the girls. So the first thing they do when they meet you is hate your guts. So your experience there is that you need to find a way to bring all these human beings together under a common purpose and inspire them to be the best selves of them. While they hate you, They hate being there. They don't want to be there. You have all the odds stacked against you for rebelliousness and discord. They hate each other too, by the way. It takes a bit of a while before they kind of figure, oh, we're in this together. Let's be friends and get the best out of it. But that journey requires you to build a family, requires you to build a common goal, a common vision that people can rally up against to perform their best around. So I think that's probably one of the best things that I've ever had to do, was to learn how to inspire and set the pace and motivate people through positive leadership. Not only that, so that was one of the biggest things in terms of understanding and working with a diverse set of characters and human beings and trying to find a way to give them common ground and working together for a common goal when all the odds are stacked against you. That's one thing. It also set the frame for everything in context that just seemed easy for the rest of my life. It's it's not that. So it builds that resilience muscle for what's hard and what's not. And the other part is that I think Simon Sinek is going on a tour right now, talking about a book he calls Leaders Eat Last, which is it's a great mantra. It just so happens to be what you do when you're in the military as well. It is what is expected of you. So he's kind of borrowed that from army life. I'm not going to credit Danish army. I'm sure other countries are probably doing something similar, but it is how you behave. And it is literally what you do. When you're in the army in Denmark, you will literally give your life to these people. Literally. You will literally carry them on your shoulders through the mud. No bullshit. Literally. You will do whatever it takes to bring to the destination that you need to go as a crew together. And as a good leader, it set my foundation of what a good leader is, which is a service function, like we talked about before. I'm here, and I like to say that when I do my job best, my crew never knew they had a problem. It never hit their radar. They never knew that there were some kind of problem coming their way that would create massive problems for them. When I do my job best, they never know, because I shielded them from it, and I carried the burden, carried the weight without them even realizing. And I think that's probably one of the mentalities that I created when back in the army. It doesn't matter if you've got a broken bone, if your leg is broken, which doesn't matter. You get them over the line. You don't whimper about your own challenges. So for me, it was a mentality that was being built within that, where you find a way to shield people from the hardships, and you take them over, you carry them if it's necessary. And that was probably one of the most important things in my life to learn very early on. Paved the empathy and paved the way that I engage with people today, which is if your family, you might not always agree on things. Might not be best friends, but that's not important. We have a mission together here. And if you're on the team and you play ball on the team, I will carry you anywhere, no matter what it takes. So I think that was the mentality that it built in me, and that will live forever. So that's why it was really important to me.
Yeah. That's really powerful, and you can see now how that empathy comment that you made earlier has played out there, and to learn that at such a young age. I think, we hear about servant leadership, but I think as a young leader, you're probably self-centered and egotistical. At least talking from experience I might have been, you're so worried about yourself and your career and your reputation that it's probably not until some maturity usually hits in, or you get the privilege of being led by someone that's a servant leader, that you learn those lessons. So I can see that. Through that hardship, that was a real privilege for you to learn that lesson young and to have that throughout your career. So last couple ones on leadership then. What has been your biggest leadership mistake, lesson or regret?
No matter what, it will always be, if you don't do it from a point of empathy and understanding of people around you, if you're doing it without considering the long-term implications for that human being, that would be some of the worst things. I can't give any specific examples around it, other than any time where I haven't been keeping other people's experience in foremind. That's where I've always ended up not really liking the outcomes. And that's because typically you will come from a point of empathy and trying to do the right thing by everybody. Sometimes you get put into positions where you need to do things for other reasons. And that's not always easy.
Yeah. Powerful. And what's been the best investment in your career to date?
Time, curiosity, and humility. I look for people who possess something similar, because I believe we can, if you're smart and you're capable, we can teach each other anything, really. But I think the best investment I've ever done in myself is allowing myself the time to humor my natural curiosity, and then the humility of saying I learn something new all the time and seek out new knowledge. I try and avoid saying I know best. I try and create a thinking that allows for constant relearning, constant inputs. So the best investment I've ever done in myself is time. It's time to look things up and interrogate things and look at how things work, take things apart. That kid that sat with a radio and a screwdriver and say, and allowing that and taking the time to do these things. And I still do that all the time. I pick things apart all the time. And that's how I learn. And that's how I become better and understand things better. So the best investment I can possibly tell people to do in their own time, in their own career, is time. But also build a curiosity and then allow yourself the time to nurture that curiosity, figure things out, how they work, play around with them. I would like to think that the best people I know, from generalists to specialists to creatives to hardcore developers, something like that, what the best always have in common is curiosity, and then having spent the time on getting better at it. These are the people who get somewhere in life, the people who move up in roles. It is the people who get respect as well, because they move their frame of reference, they move their frame of understanding, because they bothered looking outside and they spend the time interrogating, investigating.
Yeah. Which is often hard to come by as a CMO. It's easy to say I'm too busy, especially if you're a parent. We talked earlier about being a dad and through lockdown and work. And, it's easy to say I don't have time to learn that, or I don't have time. But like you say, it's that investment to make the time and stay curious. And is it curiosity around a wide variety of fields, like outside of marketing, that you're curious about?
Yeah.
And do you think that gives the benefit of then, collecting the dots to connect the dots and kind of seeing things in a different light and learning from different fields and bringing some of that back, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, into your career and just enriching your life as well?
Absolutely. I'm honestly just curious by nature. So everything from history to how people behave, anthropology in general, psychology, and spend a lot of time reading up on that and looking at it on the surface. Obviously, I'm not going out and taking a degree in these things, so you would put me on the spot if we were to have a very deep academic conversation about anything, really. But I'm curious about things on the surface and trying to understand how things play out. And I'd like to think that very, very, very broad curiosity across so many fields have done exactly that. It's broadened my perspective. It's broadened my understanding of things, but it also provides a degree of creative possibilities, because I have so broad reference points in terms of things. Like the best creative work comes from madness. It comes from things that makes absolutely zero sense. But somebody at some point just said something funny because they were a bit creative, and people just go, "That's a good idea, really. You should probably do that." And I think some of the best ideas comes out like that. Some of the best work has come from coffee machine, the shower, or something else like that. You wake up and you had a dream and just go, "Gotta write this one down."
Yeah.
But I think all of that comes from the amalgamation of all your experiences and being able to have that broader frame rather than a narrow field, and being able to see the big picture on things. And I think that's probably also why I'm able to craft those growth plans, where I have a capability of easily seeing the A to C, like the steps that take you to a particular place, probably because of that reference point.
Yeah, fascinating. Excellent, Steffen. Well, we are now up to the Fast Five. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. What do you believe are 3 essential capabilities or criteria of a high-performance marketing team?
Fun, bravery, and curiosity. And particularly around the fun, why not? If you're not having fun with it, it's a matter of time before you have burnout.
Yeah, love that. And how would you describe your team's culture in one word?
Family.
And what is one metric you've successfully used to track and measure team performance?
All of them. For the marketing team, specific impact and where we can move the needle, cost of acquiring customers, CACs if you want.
Excellent. And what's one skill or capability you've learned recently you wish you'd developed sooner in your career, and why?
Gardening. That is actually the recent thing that I've really dug into is plants. I've become a bit of a green thumb plant fanatic. There's something around nurturing things, putting things to life and growing things that is just so deep in me that it kind of permeates into these other weird areas. But that's one thing.
Yeah.
But how it developed my career, it didn't. but it's a new skill, and I'm getting better and better at it.
Yeah, and have that time away from work, right? And that relaxation and
When the sun is out, I start my mornings with a cup of coffee, going out on my grass in my garden. And then I just twiddle my bare feet among the grass and just breathe for a second, just appreciate life.
Yeah.
And all the dead plants around.
Yeah, my lawn's not looking too good at the moment. I think it's got more weeds than lawn.
I'll come over, buddy. I'll pitch you right up.
Thanks. Need some help with that. And what book or books have you read that you found yourself recommending to others, or you think our audience would gain value from?
It really should be a marketing book, right? But it is just Josh Kaufman's The Personal MBA. And the reason why it's that one is because it sets the tone and a frame and an understanding around business that I think any marketer should understand. Too many marketers are sitting and just thinking marketing and don't understand how it plays into the bigger picture of things. And it is guaranteed going to block you from moving further in life and in further roles if you don't understand and if you don't care enough about all these other things. So Josh Kaufman's The Personal MBA is a great little book in business and operation and scalability that also has so many elements of marketing and why marketing and advertising and branding is important that is entwined in that book, that you get the reference point of what it is, what value it really provides to business. If the marketer that's listening to the podcast right now isn't aware of it already, but due to the quality of the audience that you have, of course, they will be well aware of that.
Perfect. We'll make sure to link that up to maybe a Booktopia link for that one. And where can people go to get in touch with you or learn more about Booktopia?
On LinkedIn. I spend a little bit of time there, and always happy to connect and discuss and answer any questions and just make new acquaintances and friends. So by all means, reach out. Yeah.
Fantastic, Steffen. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Obviously, I had a long, in-depth conversation about a lot of things, but I loved learning about your fascinating career and the kind of impact and influence that first Army role had on your leadership to date, and that instilling of that servant leadership culture, the changing role of marketing like we talked about, and the importance of trust and influences and how the game is changing there, personalisation and using data for good and the importance of building trust, and then how you've recently restructured your team with that clear vision of how do you get to 500 million and structuring around those 6 different areas. And I love the way you went into depth in some of those and talked about the nuances between them and that there is some overlap, but by having a clear purpose for each team and organising people with the right skill sets under those teams and getting them all working well together through clearly defined processes, you can kind of make sure you're aligned with the strategy and achieve those goals. So lots of great takeaways for the audience, as well as some of those leadership lessons at the end. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Ty. It's an absolute pleasure.
You've been listening to Lean Mean Marketing Teams with Ty Hayes. If you love the show, please remember to hit subscribe so that you can discover more tips and strategies to build a high-performance marketing team. And if you're feeling generous, please tell someone about the show who you think would benefit. We're on a mission to help CMOs build their dream team and enable marketers to do their best work. And we appreciate your help in spreading the word.